Okay, guys, the meeting's going to be called to order and we're going to be recording. When? Oh, sec. Wait for the lady. She's in charge.
Yep.
Recording. Okay, welcome back. And could we please move to page 156, 2.8, decisions on the traffic bylaw following public consultation. And we've got Natalie online, I understand.
Yep.
And Catherine in person. Hi, Catherine. Thanks for a quick lunch.
My apologies. I thought you said 1:15, so I was walking around telling 1:20. Walking around telling everybody it's a 1:20 start.
That's right. No trouble. No problem.
I'm going to hand over to Natalie
Yes.
from GMD, who's been helping us with this work, and she'll just give you a quick overview of this item.
Natalie, it's up to you now.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Kath. So item 2.8 is the report on amendments to the traffic bylaw. So public consultation has been completed. It occurred in parallel with the parking bylaw. Only 4 submissions were received and no further amendments are proposed. The report, we're on page 156, is now asking you to make the recommended amendments to the traffic bylaw and make the resolutions under the amended bylaw, which will update and create a current and accurate register of resolutions. I do want to emphasize that while there are a large number of resolutions in attachment C, the majority of these are already in place, and I believe Ed can confirm if he's in the room. These were signposted in 2023, and so this is formalizing existing practice, not creating any new changes, and creating an accurate record of these resolutions for the council. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Natalie. You said that most of them in place. Is there any new ones we should be aware of?
I would need to hand over to Ed for confirmation of those. My understanding is that the one-way roads are all already in place. They're functional one-way roads. So
okay, we've got Ed coming to the table.
Oh, thank you, Ed.
Yep. Thank you, Ed. Just highlight us anything we need to know that's not already there.
Through the chair, it's my understanding that these are already in existence. The majority of these relate to the formalisation of one-way streets around the district, which is a result of developers building roads with central medians, effectively creating one-way streets that we had never previously recognised.
Okay. Councillors, yes, Deli.
So given that the report has been read and that there's nothing new or surprising, can we take all of the resolutions in one block and move them? A
nice thought, Deli. I think it's a good idea. I think we will do that. Would somebody like to move then? Yes, Councillor Martin Rodley moving. Do we second it? Deli. Before I put it to the resolution, any more discussion? No more discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Ed. What page?
That is on page 259, and Arizona is here to speak to it.
But moving to page 259 in your agenda packages. 259. Kathy in Arizona? Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
I'm Kathy O'Callaghan. I'm part of the district planning team. I have met you before very briefly with fast track submission. We can be very brief because I know you have a very full agenda today. I'm here to introduce my colleague, Arizona Haddon, who has done a marvellous submission on limbs, and hopefully she can answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and tēnā koutou. I'll just summarise our feedback that we've drafted for the council. So in December 2023, an amendment was enacted to the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, or we just call it LGOIMA, which would introduce a new section to the Act comprising a set of regulations that provide direction on the inclusion of natural hazard information on land information memoranda or LIMS. So the Department of Internal Affairs has prepared a draft set of proposed regulations and asked councils for their feedback by the 28th of October. And the exposure draft that they sent us included 15 questions on their 16 proposed regulations. Staff from strategy and policy, building, legal, IT and asset management collaborated in drafting these responses to all 15 questions for council's consideration. So staff recommend that the council approves the draft feedback, receives the report and delegates authority to the chief executive to approve any editorial changes. We're very happy to take questions.
Thank you. And my apologies for being slightly delayed. Could I just ask you guys to introduce yourselves one more time? Thank you.
Your worship, I'm Kathy O'Callaghan from the district planning team, and this is my colleague Arizona Haddon.
Fabulous. Thank you. Nice to see you. So Delhi, go ahead, please.
All of us bring different strengths to this table. And one of the strengths I don't have is the strength that you two ladies very clearly have. And I really appreciated the mahi that you did to make it palatable for myself, who's strategic, artistic, and all of those wonderful things. I can do an interpretative dance if you like. But I really appreciated, as I do with so many other staff members, the ability to see what the feedback should look like without having to get my brain into a space that isn't a natural space. So thank you for those recommendations.
Thank you, Delhi. Peter?
Yeah, thanks for your work on this. There's a couple of things that I would think that I'd like to see included in our feedback. And there's a general policy or general fact, I suppose, that where you have complexity, you have cost. Where you have completeness, you also have cost. So the thing that came through to me was, in trying to do this, I think there is potentially going to be cost. What I guess what my concern was that as I read it, whilst it might potentially simplify things for some people, that I could imagine then somebody, applying for, this, applying under this sort of, with these things, they were going to have to pay a fee. And that fee will be higher because a whole lot of work has been done by staff to simplify things for them. And there will be a whole bunch of people who probably may not need things to be simplified for them. I'm just concerned that we go through all this and we end up having to raise our fees and charges. And I'd like that to somehow be reflected in feedback, that there is a concern that because of all the work that ends up being done, not by the end user, but by us, that we then are ending up charging people a whole lot more. And there are some people who might be very happy to deal with the raw data and so on, and might kind of be wired in that way, and yet they're now being asked to pay higher fees because we're doing all this work to simplify things for them. So that's a concern that I have there. And the second thing that I would like to recommend is that when this comes out in plain language, that rather than have documents that are a mix of te reo and English, there are documents that are in te reo and there are documents in English, because I think for both speakers of both languages, it becomes easier dealing with something. So in terms of trying to simplify things, dealing with a document that's just in English without mixing in te reo, that would be something that I would suggest would be worthy of people thinking about it.
So people could choose.
Terry?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, I look at 4.3, the draft regulations, and it's on page 261. And I've got a couple of questions around there. First of all, that this Lagoima enacted it looks like it's going to be in 2025. So you don't know a date in 2025, do you? Just up to the government to pass this?
That's for you. I think it's the 1st of July 2025.
July 25.
Yeah, the provision's been passed, but this is the regulations to support the provision.
Yes, right. So this is going to give us guidance on where we're going, specifically including natural hazard information under the specific heading as coastal hazards, earthquakes, tsunamis and flooding. And I think that's where our head is at the moment going forward when we're dealing with some of these issues around the coast, that this will become a responsibility of councils to put these on LIM reports. I think when you get a LIM report, you got to pay for it currently. Is that right? There's a charge? Yeah, so people be able to, I think it's not a large charge. You know how much it is? No, I don't know. How much is it? Do you know?
Through the chair, I'm not 100% sure how much it is this year, but it's set as part of the fees and charges when we do the LTP.
Right.
And when you set the LTP and fees and charges for annual plan, or through that LTP process.
Yeah. So so we're at the stage of looking at flood modelling and things like that, and so this is a real good guidance going forward, and we have to make sure we do this right. So I really endorse this as something good for the council. So thank you.
Any other questions? I have one, and you'll have to forgive me if it might have been covered in here and I've missed it. But that is around information that goes on LIMS, and we're giving feedback on the changes there in terms of Lagoimas. But what if the situation changes? If council, for example, like we've done in Whangamata, we've done some work and the situation for an individual property changes, it's on the LIM, needs to be updated. How does that process happen? Is that covered in our feedback?
It is. So it's one of our main concerns is that, if something becomes outdated or a situation changes, or we get information but it's not peer reviewed, or we're not sure about its validity, where does it stop? What do we have to put on the LIM and what do we not have to put on the LIM? And at the moment, the feedback is just, if it's known to council, but that might not necessarily be helpful to a property owner. So we have tried to put that in the feedback, that we're quite concerned about the validity of some of the information.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else, councillors? Okay. Mover and a seconder, please. Terry, seconder. Peter Revel, all those in favour? Thank you. Much appreciated. You? This is exhibit A. This is my prompt from Ari. Thank you, Ari. Who's stealing my run sheet? I got one. Ed, hello, welcome.
Is this, I don't know, we're on 2.10? Yeah. Just wanted to point out that after this item, we're going to go to 3.1 before we visit 2.11.
Thank you. What's 3.1?
Put information.
Ah, there it is there.
Information in there that's relevant to the.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. All right. Ed, over to you. Thank you.
Through the chair, item 2.10 is a proposal for the creation of a council protocol for the approval of private utility services within road reserve. This is to address a problem that we foresee coming towards council for private utility services such as water societies, etc., requesting licenses to occupy as a result of the need for them to sort of rationalise and get approvals for their services under the new Water Utilities Act legislation when it occurs. So this is as a result of a need being identified. We've developed a protocol that should hopefully save staff and council time.
Fantastic.
If I can please make one additional comment. This is also to correct some of the historical stuff from the past. So in the past, there are a number of water services providers who have laid their services on the council road reserve. This addresses that as well. It's basically to legitimize those.
Are you saying that they've done it without getting permission or following protocols?
There may have been discussions with councils in the past, but we never had a protocol for them to occupy the road reserve.
Thank you. Just one quick question from me. It pops up regularly amongst community members, planting and use of berms for planting trees and veggie gardens and things like that. Is that a problem? And does this address some of those issues?
Through the chair, that can be a problem, yes. We have multiple sites around the district where it does occur, and as a council, we've actually agreed to it in certain locations. It's something that we are looking at as a second option. A future report, should we say?
Okay, thank you.
This does not address that, no.
But it's on the radar.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Say that Christchurch, Auckland City Council's had a lot of dealings with verges and things, and you might find some helpful stuff they've got on that, because there's been some amazing stuff that's happened there, and they've been through the process.
Thanks, Councillor Gottlieb. All right. Oh, Martin, you had a question?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at both option 1 and option 2, and they both appear to have the same disadvantage about the lost opportunity to capture historic private utility services data across the district. So why would adopting this protocol lose the opportunity to capture that data?
Through the chair, that appears to be a cut and paste error that's crept in. The disadvantage, there is no disadvantage that we can see in option 1. I apologise for that.
So in option 1, we cross out the lost opportunity wording. Okay.
The other way around. So if we don't implement option 1, there's a lost opportunity.
Right. So implementing option 1 means we can capture this data.
Correct.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay. So the proposal is we go back to the recommendations on page 265. We've got recommendations 1 through 4. No further discussion. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Martin, Delly, all those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to 3.1 now, roading activity overview. 286, thank you. Ed, you're staying with us. Mo, you're in this as well. Thank you. All right.
Yep, I'm happy to introduce the report. Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. The purpose of the roading activity overview report is not so much to go through item by item that's listed on the report, but to give elected members a feel of the depth of issues we are dealing with in the roading space. There's a lot of national changes that are going on, which we are required to respond. and these activities are occurring almost simultaneously. So at the appropriate times, we will bring reports to council to keep council informed and decisions made. But it's just to give you a flavor of the issues we are dealing with at the moment. We will cover this in the next NLTP funding report as well. The way some of the funding is being reallocated by the Crown, especially in the low-cost, low-risk areas, where funding has been removed and moved to pothole maintenance. What the Crown is saying to us is if you don't move your funding to match that, you're not going to get anything. So basically, we don't have much of a choice other than to move our funding to match those activities if you are to receive that funding. So that's just a quick overview. Ed, you would like to add anything?
Well, that sounds like fun. Delhi, and then Terry, please.
So what jumps out at me straight away is page 288 with speed limit reductions and traffic calming. Point number 7, non-compliant long-term temporary speed limits. And you're probably sitting there going, I knew you were going to say something, will need to be removed. This may require the removal of temporary speed limits at Kuao, Tunu, Whitianga and Thames. There is going to be an enormous community backlash on this. Do we have any other mechanisms whereby, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, we can assuage the fears of our communities and put something in place that will assist them with their traffic problems?
Through the chair, the legislation has been published, but what we do not have at the moment is definitive guidance from NZTA on how that legislation is to be interpreted. What we do have, however, is a legislative process to create speed limits, which has been something we've been looking for the best part of 2 years since we knew about the change of government and the change of legislation. That process can be used to make the temporary speed limits permanent.
Right.
But it will incur a cost to council for each speed limit we change, because there is now a requirement for full public consultation and for a preparation of a business case to support the speed limit change. This is something that we do not have funding for in the current LTP. We would need to investigate what the actual implications are and what level of reporting is required by NZTA to speed limit changes, and then report back to council seeking funding, possibly on individual cases or possibly on group cases.
So if a community group, sorry, because this is relevant, if a community said, we would like to fund the public consultation or undertake that consultation ourselves under your parameters, would they be able to do that?
Through the chair, I don't have any clear guidance on that at the moment. I would think that NZTA may see that community undertaking their own consultation could be a conflict of interest.
But it's a good question. I think it's a really good question. You could argue that us as council, as members of the community undertaking that consultation could also be a conflict of interest. But Terry and then Rekha, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. I've read this report with much interest and concern. Yeah, and I go back to the effort that John and Len did in trying to go to the government and get a funding package for us with some big assumptions in the LTP, and it hasn't turned out that great, really. But if I look to 4.3, GPS implications of council on 2286 and 287, it says some pretty clear guidelines there about fixing potholes on local roads within 24-hour inspection, that increasing the percentage of rehabilitation local road network towards 2% per annum. TCD currently sit at less than 0.5. So it looks like a $2 million injection you're requesting there. An additional OPEX funding in the region of 2.2 million required annually. and 2% of sealed network length of rehabilitation, 10 Ks and 9% for 45. So there's some pretty grunty things in there without going to do anything else. And the 24-hour inspection, and what does that mean? Can you explain to me what 24-hour inspection on potholes means? Does that mean identify them and fix them, or what?
Through the chair, this is something where we still have not got clear guidance from NZTA on. I've been speaking to the director in NZTA who's developing these protocols. It appears that the minister announced this in relation to expressways and state highways only. The intention may not be to apply the same 24-hour inspection and repair rule to local roads. In fact, I would think it's
Crazy.
I wouldn't want to express that opinion about an estate.
Very diplomatic, Ed. Thank you. Rebecca, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to echo Dali's comments that item 4.10, number 7, which talks about the potentially or may require a removal of temporary speed limits at Kuaotunu, Whitianga and Thames will result in absolute potential anarchy in some of these small coastal villages that have worked really hard to achieve those speed reductions. But the other comment that I wanted to make was, I mean, are we doing much to communicate the fact, the point that you just made, Mo, about we will be expected to match dollar for dollar and put investment in areas where the government is suggesting. So essentially taking some of the decision making out of communities and councils' hands in terms of what we have to do. Are we communicating the situation that we're in with our communities as well as we should be? Because I can see coming at us, I mean, just looking at the 1.2 to 1.6 million and an annual OPEX of 60,000 with regards to speed signs around schools, 22 schools that we have in our district. They're absolutely important, but those figures are huge in terms of getting that done. So in talking about the money that we are rating for to invest on our roads and what is being forced upon us in terms of what we have to achieve, I think that we need to get that messaging out to our communities.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rika. The answer is yes. This information is new. It only arrived about a month ago, so you're seeing it firsthand. But after this council meeting, and should the report get accepted and adopted, we will prepare something for our communities. But going back to the speed limits, to touch on what Ed mentioned before, previously we did not have a legal avenue to set speed limits. The Act provides an avenue, although it's painful, but there is an avenue which is better, in a better position than what we were. We'll test it out and see how the legislation works. Thanks.
Do we have any idea, if we look at Kuaotunu, for example, it's a temporary of 30 kilometres an hour at the moment. If we went through the process of consultation, business case, do we have any idea what it would cost to get that changed from a temporary to a permanent speed limit under this structure? Ballpark?
My experience with NZTA consultation and business cases is the consultation would normally be a 6-week online consultation. That's minimal cost, and we can probably organise that within council itself. There will be a need for publication that will need to be proven as part of the business case. The business case development could vary between $5,000 and $50,000, depending on what level of business case NZTA want in each individual case. I would estimate possibly a total cost of between 12 and 15,000 would cover it. And that would include the preparation of any plans that are required, any traffic orders, any changes to the speed limit, etc.
And the time, it's 3 months? 6 months?
There is a process. We could certainly get what we need to do done within 3 months. However, there is a requirement once we prepared all this for NZTA directors to review it before approving the change to a speed limit. And I've got no guarantee of any timescale on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this time in the afternoon, thinking of a deviously cunning plan, if we stop being metric and go back to miles an hour, we won't have to change the signs.
It's a plan. It's a plan. John Morrissey, please, and then Robin, and then Martin.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, guys, this is just the start of what's going to come through from central government as they offload their costs into ours. It's been signalled pretty clearly by the government that's their intention. Yes, Len and I fought a big battle, and we at one stage had $750 million in our pockets, which went down to about 280, and which is now a puff of steam. That was from the Labor government. What I've brought it up with Len is I'm happy to become a non-compliant council. For example, the speed signs past schools, $1.2 million a year, 60,000 gone on OPEX. We haven't budgeted for that. We haven't got that money. If we can't afford to do it, we simply know just not going to do it until such time as we can. And let's see what the government actually throws back at us. I'm not saying we won't do it, but we should only do it when we can afford it. And the same thing goes for your speed signs. Let the current ones stay there. The police are not enforcing them that overly hard anyway. Just leave them until such time as we can address the problem. So that's my thoughts, guys. I'm actually happy to take this stance, not only with this issue, but with any other issue where I see central government pushing this sort of stuff on councils, which is completely unforeseen, which is completely unaffordable for us. And when you look at our annual plan for, our proposed annual plan and what's coming towards us on that front, we're just not in a position where we can afford the odd million here or the odd million there. So I actually just want you guys to remember non-compliant council. We don't have to do what the government says all the time.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey.
Of course, the CEO will have a different view on that.
I really just had a comment to supplement what Councillor Connell raised at the beginning about our community's feelings about the things that have been forced onto us, I guess, and also to sort of follow up with what Councillor Gary Percival says about communications. And I've already had members of the community that is affected by the lower speed limits at the moment come to me and varying levels of distress about the fact that they worked so hard and they really wanted these speed reductions, and they've happened, they've been temporary, they're now being taken away. And so I have been very forward about the idea that I'm the wrong elected member on the peninsula to talk to, and that the sitting MP is a member of one of the parties that's in the coalition. And so I have been firmly sending people in his direction. At least two of them have made appointments to see him to voice their displeasure at a place, at an ear that is more able to listen to what they're having to say.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Martin, please.
So again, as I was commenting about section 4.10, I just wanted to check that first point 1 says permanent speed limits established under the previous act to be repealed at council's expense. As I understand it, we don't have any, we haven't done any on the peninsula. The only ones we've got are temporary ones on state highways that Whakakotahi put in.
That is correct. A little bit of foresight, and we did not put in any changes to speed management.
And then, around the variable speed signs near 22 schools, I would endorse what Councillor Morrissey had said. And I think their insistence about variable speed is ignoring evidence which says that 80% of accidents in the vicinity of schools happen outside school hours. And I would be more than happy to be a non-compliant councillor with that, because it's we could budget the money, we could start putting them, and we could get a change of government who says no 30 k's around all schools. To me, it's so up in the air and there's no long-term plan at all. So yeah, I'd like to be non-compliant about that. And sorry, and one more thing. When there's a variable speed sign at a school which is on a state highway, and I think 6 of our 22 schools are on state highways, is that us doing those signs or Whakakotahi?
the 22 schools are within our roads. There are additional schools on state highways. And yes, anything on state highways is NZTA to fund.
100%, it's not far.
100%. We do not subsidise NZTA.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. That clarifies a question I had. That all 22 are on our local roads. Thank you. So there are 22 on ours and another 6 on
Tapu, Te
Yeah.
Benowakiti.
Yeah.
Benowakiti. Pararenga. Okay. Any other, Terry?
Yeah, my comment now is to move on the NLTP budget, 4.4. It talks about there the structural maintenance of road platforms and drainage in lieu of other essential roading tasks such as minor and capital works addressing resilience issues. So what are they asking there for you to do and how much funding is they providing for that?
If I may answer that one, basically we had in the region of, and you'll have to bear with me, I'm just trying to recall the figures. We had in the region of about 1.2 million in what we called low cost, low risk, which was basically associated with improvements that we would carry out to roads, normally as we were doing heavy maintenance, should we say, like rehabilitation works, or as specific projects. All that funding has been cut and moved into a ring-fenced budget of basically potholing, patching and drainage repairs.
And will you have to report back to them on that?
We do not have to report back directly to them. We provide a monthly report to the Transport Agency each month on our budget expenditure.
Right.
That's routine.
That's routine. They're not asking for extra information.
Not on that, no.
And can I just a couple of supplementary questions? The FAR rating, obviously 51%, and they've dropped down the emergency contingency to what? What's the emergency?
The FAR rate hasn't changed. It's 51%. The emergency contingency is still 71%, 20% above the normal rate. What we no longer have is the enhanced FAR, emergency FAR rate of 91% that was applied to certain works from the cyclone.
Right. And can I just quickly, sorry.
If I can please make one addition. The other piece to that, what's coming is the normal FAR rating for emergency works, which was 70%, could drop to 60, another 10% drop. And they have increased the rainfall return period from 1 in 10 years to 1 in 20 years. So that comes into legislation, I think, from July 25. It's not enacted yet, but it's on their radar.
Right. Okay, some cuts could happen there. And the last one's around the footpaths and lighting. Is there some cuts planned for that?
Footpath maintenance and footpath lighting budgets have been reduced, yes. For new footpaths and new lighting, NZTA have basically cut all subsidy for those works. Anything that we do in that relation will have to be 100% council funded.
My last one is around traffic management. Can we set up a unit internally? It's one of the big costs that we're dealing with all the time, and especially smaller groups and that want to shut down parts of their streets and do events and that. Are we committed to using, is there any opportunities for us to change that model and have an internal model?
I can partially answer that question, and I will ask Ed to answer the other half. In relation to national standards, so that we use the code of practice for temporary traffic management, which was used by NZTA, and that's been replaced by a new code, which comes into force, I think, from November this year. The new code gives contractors more latitude in terms of how traffic management is set up based on a risk-based approach for each site. The COPTEM system we have now is quite prescriptive, and that's what has led to council specifying certain requirements. some sites are using the new rules, not within the district, but outside, and their contractors have a little bit more freedom to set up sites. Council still has the responsibility to make sure they are safe. So we are in kind of like a transition state, and we'll give the new guidance some opportunity to mature, and we'll see how it goes.
That sounds encouraging, Mo.
Yep.
A bit more flexibility. Yep. Opportunities to achieve cost reductions.
Yeah, if I could, there is more flexibility. There is also more risk associated with it. You will come across situations where contractors will want to do the lowest possible level of traffic management because it reduces their costs. Whether or not council as the road controlling authority is willing to accept that increased risk to the travelling public and to the workers is something we will need to discuss. Actually, on the creation of a specific traffic management fund for dealing with minor events, as a council, I don't believe we can take on that responsibility. But if councillors wish to fund minor events, that would enable, or subsidise minor events, that would enable local groups to hold these things and to employ their own traffic management firms.
Thanks, Ed. I will just make a comment about 4.5, just so that councillors are completely in the picture about the work that went on at the Regional Land Transport Committee. And you all know that John and I worked hard on this. We started in December last year with $811 million approved by that committee for Coromandel rehabilitation resilience funding. When the government came in, the new government, they changed that. They revised the NLTP. The Regional Land Transport Committee was asked to go back with a lower number. They went back with $248 million. And of that 248 million, and you'll see in 4.5, the number that came back was 0 for the Coromandel Peninsula. Now, there will be some redirection of some of that funding, and Ed's pointed that out in the report, but it was disappointing to have gone back with a lower number and get none of that approved. And that's what we're dealing with now. So one last question. Places like Wharekaho and Kuatunu, where they are, the communities have been asking for a very long time for footpaths to access in places where they're trying to get kids to and from school safely. We have no options there, do we, at all, in terms of, because they're state highways, we have no options apart from fully funding those footpaths if we decided to do them.
That is correct. Any new footpaths have to be wholly funded by the council.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? All right, thank you. I'm going to move her into seconder, please. The recommendation is to receive the roading activity overview. Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Ed. Mover, seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Councillor Morrissey, thank you. All in favour? No. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mo.
Could I just have a quick word with you in the council at this stage, Your Worship? I have suggested that at the moment we're up to 10 to 12 on the agenda, and it's now 2 o'clock. We do appear to be running behind time. What I would like to suggest, and Ari says it is possible, is if we adjourn the meeting at a time decided by you and reconvene it after tomorrow's workshop, which finishes at 11. I would rather do that than actually do the agenda an injustice. Just something for you and the council to consider.
I'm open to ideas. Is everyone who is long distance, are you guys staying overnight? Rika, are you overnight? Yep. Okay. What's Can I just check my calendar
Yeah.
and make sure I've got? I've just got a media interview at
Is there any councillor?
11 o'clock, but we're all here, so
9:30. We have the council time after that, is that? Yes.
we do. But what we can do, if you like, is we can see when's Aileen's back for the beginning of this workshop tomorrow. She's flying back tonight. So we can check with the CE if we can move that time, or we can just put it into the middle and then carry on with the agenda after that.
There is actually, I disagree with Councillor Gottlieb. There is some stuff coming up which is going to take some time, and I just think we can work to a certain time determined by you, Your Worship, and then if need be,
I'm going to
finish it off.
suggest we go till 3.
And then revisit
how are
at
you
3.
for? Okay. Okay, so thank you for, no. Yeah, okay. So thank you for flagging that. Anyone else got appointments that day?
I have a dentist appointment, not at 2:30,
Not at
but at 11:45.
All right. Can I suggest then we go through till 3 o'clock? We do what we can.
From there, I think.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. So let's carry on till 3 o'clock. We'll get done what we can between now and then. We've, all right. Okay. The Chief Executive Report. Sorry, we've passed that. Was there anything else that?
Got two.
Oh, 2.11. I'm sorry. I've gone ahead of myself. Okay, 2.11. Ed, over to you.
This is the report on the National Land Transport Fund settlement from NZTA for the period of 2024-27. Basically, it's a reallocation of funds, as we've previously discussed, by NZTA and by central government towards potholing and patching. We've looked at the existing budgets that we've got approved for 24-25 and have come up with a solution that has zero capital expenditure effects and negative operational expenditure effects, effectively meaning we spend less on operational maintenance. Similarly for 25-26 and 26-27, we've looked at those budgets, adjusted our spends accordingly to what the ministerial expectations are. In 25-26 and 26-27, there are increases in capital expenditure, which we would need to look at and address as part of the annual plan settlements for those years. But there are reductions in the operational expenditure. Overall, the budgets remain relatively stable. That's because NZTA's National Land Transport Fund settlement doesn't recognise the difference between OPEX and CAPEX, whereas we have to recognise that. That's something that causes us problems each 3-year cycle. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ed. John.
Thanks, Ed. I know there's a need to reprioritise and cut our cloth to suit. What concerns me is the Windy Point Tikuma Road, and it is actually vital to the mussel industry. It's the only road in and out of the Sugarloaf. If that road collapses, that's the end of the mussels coming in and out. There is no alternative. It's one way in, one way out. So the implications of that collapsing and the mussels not being able to be got out of the Sugarloaf is substantial. And I know that you've said in the event of a total collapse, it would attract FAR funding of 71%. But it's the time that road would be closed until it was repaired. And I think you'd be talking a reasonable amount of time for that road. And it is in not in a good condition. It's been a cause of concern for the last couple of years. You and I have discussed it. So it's not like it's fresh. So I'm willing to take my knocks like every other ward in this district, but that road is significant for the mussel industry, and if it collapses, that's a lot of the employment in town put in jeopardy. We've just recently lost Sanford's out of there. Things are not that rosy in the mussel industry. They won't take a road closure very well at all. It will actually could be the end for some of those guys in that industry. So I don't know what the alternative is, guys, but that is a crucial road. It's not just a rural road. The industry relies on it.
Councillor Morrissey, have you got a preference in terms of the way that you would want to word that resolution to address that issue?
Well, it's not option one. So it's a matter of the work priority that staff have, the work that staff have seen as possibly being able to cut in order to not impact rates. And I'm saying to staff, anything but that road would be more palatable. So it's not a recommendation. It's asking for options other than Windy Point Road.
Well, maybe just through the chair, if I can. How bad a risk is the road? Can you give us some understanding of the risk? Is it currently under repairs, or is it likely to get under repairs? And what's the risk factor?
Through the chair, the road is currently operating roughly at about, it's not 2 lanes, but it's not down to 1 lane. So there is a collapse on the shoreline, but it's not affecting the actual operation of the road yet. We are aware of the situation, and as Councillor Morrissey says, we've been looking at this for a number of years. We have a solution for it. We actually have that solution costed and priced. So literally, we could go out to that. We could get it done next week if we had funding. What we do not have is funding, because NZTA have effectively stripped that out of the low cost, low risk budget where it would have been funded from, and put it into the potholing, patching and repairs budget. Saying that, we have an indication from the teams within NZTA who do the overview of our budgets, that if we underspend on what is now called major improvements, which is within this ring-fenced potholing and patching budget, then it may be possible for us to reapportion budgets later on in the year to actually get Windy Point done. There is no guarantee for that, and it would be, I suspect, pushing the expectations of the higher echelons of NZTA and the Minister's office. But that would be my recommendation.
Ed, is there anything that we can do to support that in terms of direct discussions with the Minister's office at a political level to stress the importance of this, especially in light of their focus on supporting aquaculture industry?
I would suggest that it would be a good option to lobby both the Transport Minister, the local MP, and possibly MIMBY on this matter, and see if funding could be allocated or reallocated from other locations.
So I have written to the ministers last week, stressing the importance of the roading access and roading security in our economic viability as a council. So those letters went out to the key ministers, Minister Brown, Minister Bishop, and one other one. Who else did that go to? Can't remember. So we can do a follow-up letter and be more targeted and more specific, especially on the aquaculture industry. So why don't I look at doing that to help support that argument and the importance and the need for that investment on that specific project. If you think it would help, I'm happy to do it. So, thank you. Martin, please.
And when we had Minister Jones and Minister Peters here out at Kupu, then
Minister Jones was the other one. Thank you.
yeah,
And copied to Scott Simpson. Yeah.
and Mr. Peters because he was.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I'll get those letters away straight away. So.
And look, I really appreciate your support, Len, and you two guys as well. It is a critical piece of roadway. Just as a backup to this writing letters and what have you, is there any way to reprioritise some of the work that's happening north of Colville that we're currently doing, that maybe the next stage, instead of doing that, do Windy Point?
The works north of Colville are funded from the Emergency Management Fund, their cyclone response. We tried to get Windy Point approved as a cyclone response scheme. It was turned down by NZTA.
On the basis that they didn't have funding?
On the basis they didn't consider that it was serious enough to require emergency works funding.
Another case, yeah. Councillors, any further questions? All right, thank you. If we look at the resolutions, Councillor Morrissey, on page 270, if we go forward with the recommendations here, then we are basically agreeing to defer Windy Point.
Yeah, fully aware of that.
All right.
I don't know that we have much choice, to be honest with you. It's a huge risk, and like I said, it may pan out all right at the end of the day, but if it fails, it'll be shut for months, and the implications of that will be months. So I would imagine the implications of that are huge.
But at the same time, exploring other options
Absolutely.
to try and get that funding reallocated.
Absolutely, and I can't see how this could but fail to get support because of the aquaculture industry. But hey, listen, things have changed.
All right, let's make the case then, shall
Yep.
we? Martin.
But does that give us a better ability to adopt option one if we're going to go out and ask for additional funding? Because if we say option two, then we're putting it off the books, and then
I think there's a lot of maybes in there, and it might. I'm concerned that it might put Ed in an awkward position because he doesn't know what the NZTA response is likely to be. That's where we need to support. So the recommendation is we go with items 1, 2, and 3. There's some risk in that, but we probably don't have a lot of choices at the moment, but we'll keep working behind the scenes. Yeah, which is part of the resolutions, yeah. So we'll take all 3 of them, 1, 2, and 3. Yep. Terry, you happy to move 1, 2, and 3? All right. Seconder, please. Delly. All right. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. That's carried. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Ed. All right. Okay. Are you okay with? Yep. All right. So we're going to move to Chief Executive Report, item 3.2, and ask Donna, please, to.
Just a thought around this,
Sure.
because haven't we got some CE and councillor time tomorrow with the Chief Exec?
Yes.
I don't want to steal your thunder, Donna, but is that an item that we can just take as read at the moment and discuss it with Aileen tomorrow?
That was going to be one of what I was going to
What- your
suggest. One of my
suggestion?
suggestions. I have got, there's some things there probably that I'm probably better placed to discuss around the financial stuff if you're interested. But yes, there definitely are some things in this report that Aileen did specifically say that she would be able to brief you on tomorrow.
So the resolution is to receive the report, which, as Deli rightly points out, we can do that. The only thing I would say is, because we are in public forum at the moment, it's an open council meeting. If councillors have any specific questions that they want to address to this agenda item, they're very welcome to do so. And I'm sure Donna will cover it as best she can. Otherwise, if there's any more detailed stuff, we can talk about it tomorrow, but we won't be in that public forum at the time. So
that's great.
So can I get a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the report? Deli, a seconder, Rekha. All right. All those in favour? Thank you. Any specific questions for Donna at this particular time? Happy to do that?
Yeah, sure. So,
Yes, all right.
I mean, I'll take the report as read. Just an update on our annual report. It's currently being audited. We're in the last week of the audit. Things are going reasonably well. So we're still on track for adoption on the 31st. The year-to-date financial reports is there at the back of this report. That's up to 31st of August. There's nothing huge in there, I guess, that we are favourable from an operating perspective. But again, that's all around phasing of often at the beginning of a financial year. There's a bit of a catch up to do with the phasing. If you've got any questions on capital funding or capital, not the funding, the capital expenditure, probably in particular projects, I'll probably refer you through to Glenn or Mo on those.
Could we have an update on where we are with the capital program, the spend to date?
Yep. So in the report here, we so we've actually, the spend to date was 3.1 million against a annual plan budget of 7.4 million.
Right. So we're behind a bit.
So we are behind. Yep. Planning is underway though, and a number of the big projects are due to start.
Right. Pre-Christmas.
Yes, my understanding.
Peter, please.
Yeah, thanks. Just going back to the annual report. So the target is that we will have that for the Audit and Risk Committee on the 24th, which
That's
is
correct. Yeah.
like 9 days from now.
Yeah.
And it'll have to come ahead of that. So you would be expecting the annual report to be included in our agenda papers next week, and we'll be on target for that?
That's correct. So what the plan is whatever version we are at with the audit will go into your agenda pack for the Risk and Assurance Committee.
Right.
Any changes from the time that agenda pack goes out till the actual meeting, we'll table them on the day so that you will, and we'll give an updated report then so that you will see it. But you will see a copy of the annual report as it currently is in the agenda pack.
Any further questions? All right, councillors, thank you.
I was also, sorry, I'll just take the Lagoima part as read too. If there's any questions on those, I'm happy to try and answer those, but as you can see, it's quite a few, 30 odd in just a little bit over a month, which the staff are dealing with very well. Probably the other thing just to note, as well in the unbudgeted expenditure is, if you recall, when you approved the carry forwards, that you did give a delegation to the chief executive to approve the changes once year end was finished. So you'll see that the adjustment was about $44,000 less than what you approved. So that would be just when we're doing the wrap up of what's been spent at year end. It's coming through on that. The Mercury Bay Coastal Protection, the out of cycle budget there, Yeah, that was to do with a consent. The good news is for this one is that staff were asked to go away and find some funding for the project rather than the whole lot being an out of cycle, and they did come up with the goods, with being able to fund majority. So I think that's a win.
Welcome news.
Can I just comment on the page 313, the coastal hazards management expense at that time? It looks like the Thames River modelling is hit of budget. Is that budget, is that
Sorry, which page?
313 at the bottom of the commentary around the coastal and hazards management expense? Favourable, but has recently commenced on the Thames River modelling. So the Thames protection design and drafting a business case, that work is commenced later than is forecast. Is that a local project? How's that funded?
That's a coastal and hazard management is a district funded activity.
District funded.
Yes.
Having that conversation.
That's part of the LTP.
That was a project that was included in the long-term plan.
As a district funded.
Mhm.
Well, it was part of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Anybody have any more questions on the remainder of the report?
Okay.
Stephen, I'm not sure if you're wanting to give a briefing. You're fine. Oh.
Okay, thanks, team. No further questions. Terry, you turn your mic off, please. We've already moved past that resolution, so thank you, Donna. Appreciate it. We go to item 3.3 Mayoral Report, which is an update. And what I have asked my team to do is give you a heads up of what's coming up over the next 3 months between now and the end of the year in terms of my commitments, appointments and schedules. Part of the reason for doing this is to flag with councillors anything that you see on there that you would like to have some input in or be involved with or come along to. I'm very grateful for that input and please let's team it up. So if there's anything on there that you see coming up that you want to be a part of, just let me know, please. Thank you. Seconder, please. Mayoral Report. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. And I think that takes us to the end of the public session. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll wait a few minutes just while we go through the process. Thanks, team. Your